we're going to bring on Pete Nakos right now to unpack this together. Pete, you're running on caffeine. You're running on fumes. You are going the extra mile. A lot of people behind you gave up a long time ago. You're still pushing. Welcome to the Hard Count, man. How are we doing?
I'm good, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing phenomenal, man. I'm doing phenomenal. You put out an intel piece not too long ago. You put out a pick recently, so let's jump right into that, man. Cormani McClain. It seemed like there was not a ton of buzz around his recruitment, or maybe he was just playing it close to the vest. And then you pop, I believe it was over the last 48 hours, you and Steve Wiltfong both put in a prediction for him to end up at Florida. Is this something that it's just kind of like right fit for Florida? They have a need in the secondary, or what's going into this with making you put in that prediction?
So there's a need in the secondary for another defensive back, and obviously Cormani McClain would fill that the role. Cormani was also in Gainesville on Friday. Spent the day with Billy Napier, and then Cormani's mother and agent were also in that conversation, and then over the weekend was told he's expected back to be in Gainesville, and that will be today. Actually, he's back at Florida today to get around the players, and Steve Wiltfong and I logged picks on yesterday for him to become a Gator, and I think some things still need to be sorted out, but everything is definitely trending in that direction.
So I think from the outside looking in, it felt like you were hearing a lot of the G5 schools, like USF is in the mix, and then you also heard from some other maybe lower profile power conference schools. I know Utah was a talking point at one point in time. Was he just really playing it this close to the vest, or was there not as many suitors for Cormani McClain?
I think he played it really close to the vest. I also think Florida has really emerged in the last week, from my understanding. I don't believe that this has been a team that has been in the mix since he immediately entered the portal. But where things stand right now, really where Florida sits, and I think today getting back on campus is going to be kind of being around the program a little bit, interacting with some players. But I mean, as you know, JD, Florida is pretty high up there in his recruitment. I think he already knows quite a few guys on the roster. It really adds up. It gets him closer to home. And I think he likes how he could fit into that defense.
It's fascinating because his recruitment at the high school level kind of taught us to expect the unexpected with him. There was a thought it was going to be Florida before he committed to Miami. Signing day comes and goes. He ends up flipping to Colorado, goes to Colorado, and now it seems like Florida is back squarely in the driver's seat. Is there any other school that's like, hey, it's Florida, your pick is in for Florida, you're not wavering on that? Any other school that maybe is in the rearview mirror that fans should keep an eye on for Cormani McClain, or at least in the discussion, or is it really just Florida in this mix right now for him?
I only got one school right now, JD, and that's Florida. And if things for some reason don't go well today, then I guess we'll come up for air. But everything I've heard is all eyes are on his visit today in Gainesville.
Good stuff. Awesome. Well, Pete, like you mentioned, not just Cormani McClain in the mix right now. I say you mentioned because you had that intel piece out there. Is there anything else on Tyler Barron right now? Because he was a guy who at one point in time was committed to Ole Miss. Then he transfers to Louisville, and now he's back in the portal. What's the latest you're hearing with him?
Very intricate situation with Tyler Barron right now, JD. So he's already taken visits to Miami and USC, and both are still alive. He's talked to Ole Miss a decent bit since re-entering the portal. And I've also heard a little bit about LSU in the last 48 hours. But the main reason why we're hearing about LSU at this moment is because his stepbrother, Wesley Walker, the safety who was previously at Tennessee and Louisville with him, is expected to go on a visit this week. And we'll see how that all sorts out. And there is some conversation right now that Tyler Barron could visit LSU with Wesley Walker. But it's really intricate, and the reason why I say it's intricate is because he signed some paperwork, from our understanding, reporting on this with Steve Wiltfong at Ole Miss, that will kind of force him to play at Ole Miss if he played at an SEC school. Now, Ole Miss could release him from that paperwork, but there's definitely going to be a process there if he decides to really go after that possibility at LSU. I really like where Miami's still at. They've been in this from the beginning. They got the first visit. I know I reported that LSU's definitely entered the picture, but by no means am I declaring them the leader or anything like that.
That's fascinating because he was playing at Tennessee last year and then now was at Ole Miss, and then he goes to Louisville. So the idea is if he goes to an SEC school, Ole Miss may have the rights, quote unquote, to Tyler Barron.
I don't know if that's exact phrasing, but you're onto the right picture that, yes, I think he signed some sort of an agreement that would bind him to Ole Miss if he were to play in the SEC. And talked to someone in the SEC office yesterday on background that there is a possibility that the Ole Miss could release him. But at the same time, I don't know if he is all in on going down that rabbit hole per se.
That is wild. The day and age of college football that we're in right now, man, with contracts and paperwork and all of those things around NIL, I'm assuming that's fascinating. Now, you mentioned his teammate, and I believe he's related to Wesley Walker, if I'm not mistaken. His cousin, is that accurate? Wesley Walker?
No, they're stepbrothers.
Stepbrothers. Okay, gotcha. Okay, so family is what we got down to there. Are they a package deal? Because I saw Wesley Walker also taking a visit to Michigan. Is that accurate?
So it's been trying to report on this, obviously. So Wesley Walker was at Michigan this past weekend. Got that confirmed this morning. Tyler Barron was not with him. I don't want to call them a package deal because at the moment, if Tyler Barron went to Miami, I'm not very confident that Wesley Walker would also be there with him. But at the same time, I know when Tyler Barron went to USC, Wesley Walker also went out there with him. So it's kind of like a case-by-case basis at the moment.
Interesting. I mean, it's such an interesting place in college football that we're in right now because the portal's been closed, but now as the supply continues to decrease, you wonder if that demand starts to creep up for a number of these different players. A blast from the past of sorts that you and Steve Wiltfong reported on, Agiye Hall, former four-star from the class of 2021, he's headed to UCF after being at Bama and then at Texas, walking on with the Knights.
Yeah, kudos to this guy, man. He enrolled at UCF this past semester as a student with the hopes of being able to get on the team. And now he's going to be part of the team as a preferred walk-on from our understanding. And former four-star recruit, has a ton of talent, was at Alabama and Texas. And, I really like what UCF has done this offseason, man. And adding Agiye Hall obviously gives KJ Jefferson another option in the passing game. And that backfield's going to be really fun, too, with RJ Harvey and Penny Boone.
I was going to say, man, UCF, you look up at all the numbers that they've put up this spring, and you're like, man, UCF's kind of gone to work here with the guys that you just mentioned, Penny Boone, now Agiye Hall, and I know he's enrolled, but still, they got KJ Jefferson during that winter portal. Why is UCF a winner to this point? What are they doing that's being so well received by transfer portal recruits?
I think being in the state of Florida kind of, I don't know if it gives them an advantage, right? But being in Orlando definitely helps, I think. And I think Gus Malzahn is doing this really interesting thing where he's really using the portal to bring in experienced talent, right? Some programs like to use the portal as a feeder to maybe get a guy to start in a year. I think Gus Malzahn is really emphasizing the portal. I mean, he's got 2 quarterbacks now. He's gotten a wide receiver. He's gotten some running backs, and I really like what he's doing. It's I don't want to say it's unique, JD. I'm not sure about that, but I think that they're using it in a really effective way.
Yeah, man, the state of Florida has become a transfer portal destination from UCF, and then what Florida State's done throughout the course of the last 2 years, including this cycle. Miami is also one of your winners. Pete put out his transfer portal winners from this spring cycle over on on3.com, so go check that out. But Miami was on that list. What about Miami has worked this spring portal cycle?
I think that having Cam Ward make the decision to go from the NFL to Miami has really helped. And if you think about the timing of that decision, the portal had really winded down at that point. So Miami was not really able to take advantage of Cam Ward's decision to become a Hurricane. And now I think you're kind of seeing the fruits of that decision pay off. This spring, they add Sam Brown, the Houston wide receiver. And then they also had Damian Martinez, the all Pac-12 running back. And they've also done really good things on the defensive side of the ball with the Michigan State defensive lineman, Simeon Barrow. I think things are rolling right now. When I talked to Simeon Barrow the night before he actually committed to Miami, I was like, what is going on right now at Miami that makes you maybe want to be a part of that? He said, he's funny. He said, their heads are on straight, man. Like they're ready to win right now. So we'll see how it all goes in the fall, but there's definitely a lot of buy-in right now at Miami.
I'm glad you said that because that's kind of the way it feels to me from the outside looking in. Miami, over the course of the last couple of years, you look at them and you're like, yeah, they look like they're going somewhere, but I don't know if that's necessarily like a stable operation. But now going from year 2 to year 3 and the jump they took and the jump they're taking on this roster, like there's, I think, real cause for optimism from a fan base level and obviously from a roster standpoint, getting Simeon Barrow and others in the boat this past spring. One more team I want to talk to you about here, Pete, Colorado. They've gone to work in this spring transfer portal cycle. What do you make of what they've been able to gather from guys that, like Dallin Hayden and alike so far this spring?
Yeah, so they lose Dylan Edwards, who you and I think both agree was probably like the most impactful loss for them in the portal. And then they go in and get Ohio State running back Dallin Hayden, and then they also get Miami of Ohio running back Rashad Amos, who they actually flipped from Mississippi State. I think 2 of the more productive backs available in the portal. I really like what they've done on both sides of the ball when it comes to the line of scrimmage. They add the Ohio edge, Ray Buell. They added a few other guys, including the Pitt edge. I believe you say his name, Dayon Hill. I think I maybe messed that one up off the top of my head. And then they also added a trio of linebackers who should be able to help out a defense that really struggled at times this past year.
You're an encyclopedia. Like all those names you're just rattling off on the spot. I don't think I even told you I was going to ask about Colorado, and you're just like, just boom, got it off the top, got it right there on hand. From a
you got to bring it, man.
What'd you say?
You got to bring it.
And you're bringing it, man. You're bringing it on, I think,
I'm
like
trying.
2.5 hours sleep. You're bringing it. Caffeine and raw energy, man. You're bringing it to the table. Pete, I got to ask you this, man, to kind of lead us out of this segment. There's a part of me that sees a team go to work in the portal in the spring, and I'm like, that's awesome. You're adding a ton of talent. On the other hand, I think the thought could be, well, hey, you're adding a lot of key pieces, or you're adding a lot of talent, period, after the most important part of your season, which is spring practice, to kind of get everyone on the same page schematically. What do you make of teams that are pushing really hard in the portal post-spring? Is that a good sign? Is that a bad sign? I mean, how do you interpret that?
I don't know if it's a good sign or a bad sign. Maybe one thing I haven't thought about enough that you kind of bring up, very interesting, right? For a program who brings in a bunch of guys in the spring, they have to mesh and gel very quickly and then try to get on the page in fall camp, when a lot of coaches would like all that to happen during the spring practice. So I guess I hadn't thought about that a lot. That's a really good point. I think the other thing, though, is like just with the way the college football calendar is set up right now, coaches kind of have to attack the spring portal. You know what I mean? Like, this is the last time you're going to be able to add an offensive or defensive tackle or things like that. So I think it's more so the nature of the college football calendar, but it is a good point of how does it all mesh together, and then you got to roll everything out for week 1.
Yeah, it's tricky because it's like if you're Miami, you're never going to turn down a Simeon Barrow Jr. if you can get him on the roster. But at the same time, You're like, man, in a perfect world, which we don't live in a perfect world, we'd love to have our roster nice and neat and tidy, have our answer on the defensive line, go through spring practice, we're good. But I suppose when you got the ability to add more talent, you take it whether you got spring practice or not. But Pete, appreciate you, man. What's next for you, man? Are we getting on vacation anytime soon, or are we just full steam ahead?
I'm looking forward to the On3 Elite event at the end of this month. And then we need to figure out what the future of college sports is going to look like, and we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, just 2 little things, just the recruiting event in the summer, and oh, by the way, the future of college sports, no problem. Day in the life of Pete Nakos. Portal Pete, man, best in the business. Appreciate you coming on.
Appreciate it. Thanks, JD.
Hey, y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.